It is Throwback Thursday, where we dive deep into our vast CBC archives. In 1990, a rat named Sniffy made international headlines after Vancouver artist Rick Gibson announced plans to kill him with a concrete block. The day the event was scheduled, animal rights activists stepped in and saved Sniffy's life. And as Karen Webb reported, they gave the artist quite the scare.
I no longer have Sniffy.
In the end, Sniffy wasn't snuffed.
I have returned him to the pet store I rented him from. You're twisted, man. You're weird.
However, the angry crowd of 300 that had gathered to stop artist Rick Gibson from killing Sniffy wasn't quite in the mood to forgive him.
We should be getting you the idea to kill a small mouse.
Well, you're can save Sniffy. I'm going to release that block.
Yesterday, Gibson was saying he planned to use concrete blocks to squish Sniffy between two canvases, what he called performance art.
And I think
he also said it was a more humane death than being eaten alive by a snake, a possible fate for a pet store rodent. But then, earlier today, a militant animal rights group called Life Force stole his Sniffy squashing concrete blocks from the back of his van.
He's that away.
By this afternoon, Gibson was visibly frightened by the crowd. After his speech, he asked the crowd to disperse and tried to leave himself.
Hey, you should drop a brick on your head, don't you think?
But he didn't get far. As reporters tried to question him about the point of all of this, some angry protesters caught up with him.
Let go right now.
You guys, where's the cops?
Gibson took off across the street and into a local hotel. The crowd followed. He ran behind the front desk for safety. Finally, at the request of the hotel manager, the police dispersed the crowd and Gibson was hustled out a side door. As for Sniffy, Gibson did return him to this pet store. The rental fee for the week was $2. And yes, he will live. Sniffy has been purchased by the animal rights group. That cost $3.99, plus tax. Karen Webb, CBC News, Vancouver.
We invited Rick Gibson on the program, but he declined, saying he wants his art to speak for itself. So for more on Sniffy's legacy and using animals in art, we're joined by Carol Gigliotti. She's professor emerita at Emily Carr University of Art and Design and the author of a new book called The Creative Lives of Animals. Carol, thanks for joining us. First of all, as you heard in the story, Gibson argued Sniffy was going to experience an instant and, in his words, more humane death. When do you think art goes too far?
Well, in this situation and in ones using animals, I would like to say that where I stand, and that is that non-human animals as subject matter for artwork should really abide by the standards that are already set up for human subjects or human topics in artworks. And so, for instance, if you had an artwork in an exhibition that was about gender or race, it would be deemed extremely unacceptable if the subject was made to feel pain, or even if there was no live subject, if the marginalization and the repression that the artist was trying to convey was actually, reinforced by the work. Mm-hmm. So I think really that we should be extending that to animals. And now, as we are very aware that animals are very self-aware, they're intelligent, they're emotional, and they're creative, we need to really extend those things to animals as well. And hopefully we'll be extending them to humans too.
How have artists' relationships and attitudes with animals changed since Sniffy the rat?
Well, it's interesting that you ask since, because, artists have always had a very strong relationship with nature and animals, and it's been positive and negative. In the 2000s, the genre of bioart emerged, and that was sort of a nadir for animals and work with animals, or animals being used as biotechnological projects to actually, in some cases, make a political statement about how bad biotechnology was, but animals suffered for it. But, now I think in terms of species extinction and environmental collapse, unfortunately. Artists are very aware of that, and I think we're seeing less and less of that, thank goodness.
And lastly, how do you think artists can and are sharing their points of view when it comes to animals without actually using an animal?
Yeah, and I actually, I have that, would like to just mention a few people. The first one is Vancouver's own Julie Andreev, whose work is all about a multi-species studio. So she works with animals, not in captivity and not forcing them to do anything. But one of the projects that is you're able to see actually in Vancouver is Bird. I think it's called Bird Station. And she works with the birds in her neighborhood. Another artist that works with sound, and it's cross-species sound, is Catherine Clover from Australia. And she does all kinds of things, including performance, and involves all kinds of people. But that idea that animals do have language, and birds are often the animal that she works with. And the last one I think is really interesting because she's been around so long, and that's Australian again, Angela Singer, who uses dead animals, but uses them. She repurposes them, and they're all roadkill, or they are actual taxidermied animals, and she uses them actually to honor and respect the animal that was this being. And they're absolutely gorgeous. So I think things are changing quite a bit.
Professor Emerita Carol Gigliotti, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.